Now, at the top of the show, we talked about a recession, the ongoing day-to-day battle with inflation. And for those planning weddings, there is the added stress factor of facing those higher costs while also shelling out big bucks for your special day. The popular wedding website The Knot did some research and found that the average cost of a wedding last year was $28,000, and prices are going up from there. So what can couples expect right now and next year? To help us get some insight on that is Western New Yorker Karina Lopez-Rogers. She is a wedding planner and designer and co-founder of KCU There. Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. So tell us, not necessarily specific numbers, because weddings really run the gamut, right?
Yes,
you've got weddings that are very affordable and then some very high-end weddings,
Sure.
but generally you have to imagine the cost has gone up substantially. What are you seeing out there right now?
So we're seeing a lot of around the percentage of 10, even up to 30% for wedding venues, food costs, alcohol, florals have been major. Thankfully, some of these costs are starting to kind of level out, but we are seeing it a lot in terms of, tangible items definitely going up in cost. And like I said, anywhere from 10 to 30%.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot whenever you're also facing increased costs just with everything else that we have in life right now, right?
Yeah.
So what do you tell people? I mean, a wedding doesn't seem like the place where most people are like, I want to skimp back, but you might be forced to do that. So what are ways that people are, trying to save some money and do it maybe in a more financially responsible way?
Sure. So, I mean, if people are trying to save and not to do like the big extravagant wedding at night, they're doing brunches, right? So like the cost there is significantly less because they're not doing, the full bar package for 4 to 5 hours. They're not potentially having a band that could cost as much as $28,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They're cutting costs, but still being able to still have that wedding experience of still doing the dancing. They're still doing the speeches. They're still there to have the experience with their guests and their family and friends. So that's one way that, a lot of people are trying to cut costs is essentially moving to a type of brunch or potentially a wedding on a date that would not necessarily be a Friday or a Saturday. Thursdays are pretty popular now. Honestly, when the pandemic hit, people were pretty much just taking any date they could. And then the reality is they were probably able to save money by having a wedding on a Monday night.
It's interesting because we talked about weddings, so many of them shifting to like Fridays because it was more affordable, or maybe your venue was more open. Now it's inching to Thursdays. We'll be having midweek weddings before we know it.
Yep.
You talked about the impact of the pandemic. Obviously, that's why things are so much more expensive. But there are also all of these shortages that were out there.
Yeah.
Venues were so packed up and there was this big backlog, right?
Yep.
Has all of that kind of caught up, or are there still those shortages out there in finding a photographer and in finding a caterer and all those things?
At the end of the day, what we've been telling clients is that as if they're open to hearing about other vendors and maybe potentially vendors that are not necessarily right in their backyard but are willing to travel, we need them to be open to that, because at the end of the day, a lot of vendors really across the board, they are completely jam-packed this year because they're not only making up for, during COVID and whatnot, they're also having the dates that they had that were just scheduled for this year in general. So really, vendors are kind of drowning right now. So the reality is that, that's something we tell our clientele is, be open to the types of vendors that we bring to you. And on top of that, potentially be open to a longer engagement. If you don't want to have, and I certainly don't want anybody to settle. So if you don't want to have that Monday through Friday wedding, and you absolutely want a Saturday wedding, it may not be possible this year. So you may have to wait until 2023, but at least you'll be getting exactly what you want.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine how long it's going to be before everything gets fully called up, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully costs stop going up at the speed they are. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I know you were on the show once before. It's great to have you in studio. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.